little bit about myself. My name is Hillary Foster. I am the homeroom teacher for Room 201, and I am teaching writing for all of the second graders this year. So I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. I attended St. Patrick's Elementary School in Wadsworth and Carmel Catholic High School in Mundelein. I received my master's degree in elementary education and my bachelor's degree in child psychology, both from DePaul University. And I've been teaching in Chicago for the past 4 years. And this is my first year teaching here at Saguenash Elementary. And outside of teaching, I love taking care of my plants, cooking and baking, going on bike rides, traveling, and going for long runs.
Okay, that brings me next. I'm Amy Murray, and I am one of the other second grade teachers. I am also the social studies teacher. We have lots of siblings this year, so many of you already know Miss Trapp and I. But for those of you that don't, I think I lose count, but this is my 26th class. I think 12 have been at Saguenash. I've absolutely lost count of that. Second grade is definitely my favorite age group. I have personally, in my own personal life, I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 4-month-old puppy. We live in the neighborhood, so we often see families around taking walks or whatever. So always be sure to say hi.
All right, and that brings it to me. I am Miss Trapp. I am the homeroom teacher for Room 202, and I will be teaching science to all of second grade. I grew up in the neighborhood. I went to Queen of All Saints just up the street, and then went to Regina Dominican High School in Wilmette, and then got my teaching degree from the University of Illinois down in Urbana-Champaign. This is my 11th year of teaching, and all of my years have been at Saguenash. However, only 8 of those 11 or 9 of those 11 have been in second grade, but that has been what I've been doing for the past 9 years. I love second grade. Again, like Miss Murray mentioned, we have a lot of siblings in this grade, so many of you probably know me already. But if you don't, I really enjoy teaching science. We're going to have a lot of fun this year. So hopefully your child comes home talking all about science, because it's probably my favorite thing to teach.
Okay, so specials. On the screen, you can see we have technology with Miss Court, art with Miss Kelly, PE with Mr. Z. This year, we are so lucky to have Spanish with Mr. Lopez and STEM with Miss Askovich. If you were part of Saguenash last year, you know that we have a rotating schedule this time around, like last year. It's a quarterly rotation. So this quarter and first quarter and third quarter, the students have technology, Spanish, and PE. And then for the second and the fourth quarters, they will pick up art, STEM, and then continue with PE. You'll also notice when you look at their schedule, the PE minutes have increased. So if it's not your PE week, your child also has 1 day of PE on their schedule.
So we're going to go over a little bit of the curriculum that you can expect your child to have exposure to this year. I'm first going to focus on reading. So reading curriculum in second grade is called the Daily 5 Cafe curriculum. It's not a curriculum that has a textbook or any sort of workbook. The reading curriculum instead is designed around introducing students to all the different second grade reading skills to increase comprehension, their ability to accurately read words, expand their vocabulary, and write. However, Miss Foster will go into writing a little bit more in a moment. But around these skills that they're developing, we have mini lessons which teach them the reading skills that they need to develop those skills. So for example, this week we've been working on asking and answering questions in nonfiction and informational text. So we've had time to kind of talk about that skill, as well as give students independent time to help build independent reading skills. They will also have opportunities to listen to reading on the Chromebook. So reading is an opportunity for us to teach all the students the same skill. And then also during the students' independent times, be able to pull small groups of students into our area and read with those students at their level, address that they need either help with or reinforcement with, or in certain situations, students might need enrichment skills or be able to read higher text. So we'll have those opportunities to be able to differentiate and challenge, as well as meet the needs of students who need that extra help during that small group time. And ideally, your child will be able to meet with their teacher in a small group setting at least 2 times a week and get those extra help skills. And then Ms. Foster's going to talk specifically about the writing component of language arts.
So our writing curriculum is the Lucy Calkins workshop model. And in 2nd grade, we really focused on guiding the students through the whole writing process from start to finish. So first they brainstorm, and then they draft, they revise, and then they publish their work, and then they share it with the class. It's all about showing them that writing doesn't just happen, it's a process, and it becomes something. So it's going to be something from start to finish. And we'll be working on various different types of writing, which include informational, narrative, and persuasive. And it's all about getting the students interested in writing and working on all of those different skills. We'll also be introducing different grammar skills using the gum book, and they will be working on the writing process with me during their writing time, and I will see each class 3 times a week.
Okay, so that brings us to math. Our math curriculum has 2 pretty thick workbooks. They are the Envision Common Core Math. We will be covering all of the 2nd grade standards, and then we'll be using opportunities in small groups to push students that maybe need that challenge, or to support students that need an area of need worked on. If we feel that it's appropriate, we might send home homework that might be a little bit more challenging, or whatever the case might be. We will work on word problems also. Word problems are historically difficult because it involves reading. So we work on daily math stories and problem-solving skills with your child. Oh, and then social studies is next, so I'm going to stay on. Social studies, we will be covering a variety of topics. We've already started government and democracy. We've talked about what is a citizen. We've started, depending on which homeroom your class is in, well, actually all of them have started, what are some American symbols. We will be moving into historical thinking and people in history, geography, different cultures, which is one of my favorite topics in social studies, because we are so blessed to have so many different cultures at Sauganash, and we learn so much about our classmates. And then economics. And then Miss Tripp does science.
So over the past couple years, science teaching and curriculum has changed quite a bit. I know that when I was a student learning science, it wasn't the most thrilling or exciting subject, because it was often, let's read the chapter from the textbooks. There's a couple questions at the end of the chapter that now you're responsible for answering. Even if the content itself within the book was super challenging and you didn't understand what was happening, it kind of just felt almost like an extra reading class. But now we teach with NGSS standards. And so everything is phenomena based, which basically means that I'm kind of exposing your children to something unusual or strange, or presenting them with a challenge or a question. And the whole science curriculum is built around your students questioning things and wanting to find out more. And it continually builds one upon the other. Now, there are specific, so to speak, like topics that I will cover. So right now we're kind of slowly entering, although they don't know it, the idea that plants need sunlight, water, and air in order to survive. We'll cover things about pollination and pollinators. We will cover erosion. We will cover solids, liquids, and gases, and also the diversity of life in different habitats. So all those different things will be presented to your children, but in a very almost backwards way that makes science really fun, really hands-on, and really awesome to learn. So we did share this with you beforehand, so we're kind of just skipping over some of the slides that don't really have important content that we maybe want to read off the slide necessarily. So this schedule is our schedule for the whole year. So you can see here, it will be posted, and this will be shared with you again via email as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about homework because it hasn't really started yet, but it will start on Monday. So homework will be nightly. And in terms of Monday night homework, we will be switching off every other week, focusing on either spelling skill with spelling words that students will have to learn how to spell, or we have a Wordly Wise workbook, which is a vocabulary textbook. So for parents who have older students, I'm sure you're very familiar with Wordly Wise. So on Monday nights, the homework will be either taking their spelling words and putting them into sentences. So they will have paper that gets sent home with them with lines for them to write out their sentences. We find this really helpful because, one, they have to practice actually writing out their words. And we know that, especially after this last year, students have been on their computers so much. Picking up that paper and pencil again has been a big challenge for a lot of students. So we really want to enforce that, yes, although sometimes, and we've heard in the past, it can be really frustrating, it is so important to be able to write out those sentences. Or if it's a vocabulary week, within the Wordly Wise book, on whichever lesson we're on that week, there is a D. So there's A, B, C, and D each lesson. The D is sort of the bigger one where they have to read a text and then answer 10 questions with their words in context. So because this homework is a little bit heftier, it might take a little bit longer for your child to complete this, especially at the beginning. We give 2 nights for the Monday homework. So you can see highlighted there in yellow, the Monday homework is not due until Wednesday. So if your child manages to be super efficient, get it done on Monday, they're welcome to turn it in or bring it in on Tuesday, but we will not check it in until Wednesday. So that's the one exception to the homework is due the following day rule in 2nd grade. You can see as well, we do expect your child to be reading independently for 20 minutes a night. They can obviously read with you, read with a sibling, read with an aunt and uncle, cousin, whoever it may be, but we're really trying to build those independent reading skills. So, a lot of parents would tell us in the past that 20 minutes before bed was the best time maybe to have them open their favorite book and read. Tuesday night will be a math homework night. So that could be a paper pencil math assignment, which would be put into their take-home folder, or it might be a digital math assignment like an IXL or something else that might get posted from the math website. Wednesday will be a Scholastic News night. So Scholastic News is a program that we have that has nonfiction text, either science or social studies related or social emotional related. And there's a couple questions students will fill out after reading. And then on Thursday, they'll switch back to math. So as Ms. Marie mentioned, after we get to know your children's abilities a little bit better through assessments and things like that, we'll be able to see if, students need more challenging homework on certain nights, or if students need more enforcement because they didn't really seem to get the skill that we were working on that day. So the math homework could be different for students, but the students will not be aware of that reality. Just so we want to meet the needs of your child. And so the best way to do that is make sure that they're receiving homework that's best for them. And then you'll also see Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we have study words. The students will have access to their words and practicing their words while in the classroom, but we find that students who do best on their spelling and Wordly Wise assessments at the end of the week are students who've had exposure and practice at home as well. So with Wordly Wise, that might mean making flashcards or testing your child on their words, something like that. What does this word mean? Because a lot of the words in the vocabulary text do have multiple meanings as well. So they have to be able to kind of know both or 3 or sometimes even 4 meanings of a specific word. And then with the spelling, obviously, it's just knowing how to spell those words. Most of our words will follow a similar pattern. So as long as they kind of clue into that spelling pattern, spelling those words should come more naturally. And again, we will practice them during word work, during Daily 5 in the classroom, but practicing them at home is going to be a huge advantage. We received some assignment notebooks, which are really exciting. So they will look like this. They say, be bold, be brave, be kind, be you on the front. Your child's name will be on the front. Starting Monday, we will be writing in these daily with our homework, whatever it will be. But on top of writing in our assignment notebooks, which helps build independent responsibility for your child, we will also be posting all homework assignments or whatever will be for homework that night on the Homeroom Google Classroom page. So there should be no reason why your child should come to school the next day and be like, I wasn't sure what was for homework, because it's going to be in two places for them. In their assignment notebook, which will go home nightly and come back to school every single day, starting Monday, and then posted to the Homeroom Google Classroom. So again, with homework, it's only 10% of their grade for both math and reading. We only give homework for math and reading. So obviously 10% is a small percentage of their overall grade. But we do encourage students to turn in their homework, get it in turned in on time. And we find students who start to develop those habits now are more successful as they get into those older grades. So again, if you have questions about this and I didn't cover everything or this was confusing, we'll have a question time at the end of this, but that is the homework expectation for second grade.
So we are letting you just look through the rest of the slides. Like Ms. Trapp said, that we have sent this already. Pretty straightforward, the breakdown of how things are graded and what weight things have. But what we're going to do now is we're going to address some of the pre-submitted questions that came back to us. We had sent home on the first day of school, getting to know your child. And there was a section there that was questions that you had had. After we address each of us some of the questions that we had gotten back, we're then going to open it up for any other questions that come up. If at that time, if you're not comfortable unmuting, feel free to throw it into the chat, and then we'll make sure that that answer gets answered or question gets answered. Okay, so I'm going to start a couple of questions that I've had. So discipline, we across the board are using brag tags in different ways. I have a brag book. The other classrooms might have a brag necklace, but your child can earn a brag tag by being a great second grade student, following directions, listening. It's something that we really want them to work towards and feel like they're earning, that it's not something that's simple, you know, that you really have to show yourself being an excellent second grade student. We have a couple, like I know I'm spelling out a word and Ms. Trapp is spelling out a word, and I think Ms. Foster might be spelling out a word. The plan is that we're working towards a class goal. And so I really focus on like compliments, and that we, you know, compliments make us feel good. And so we're working towards spelling out a word in our classrooms, and that would get us a reward as a class. Math enrichment was a question. And as I mentioned, when I talked about math, we are going to be covering all of the second grade standards, but we are going to take opportunities in small groups to push your child. Also want to mention that, you know, although we don't want to rely heavily on digital after last year, especially, but IXL is a website that the school does pay for, and they have a diagnostic that we'll be working on in class, and it gives us just like a baseline. There is no NWEA this year, so it gives us a little bit of a baseline. And what's nice about it, it does it for reading and it does it for math, and then it gives recommendations. And so although we don't want to rely super heavy on digital, it is nice because it would give recommendations of maybe like, where can your child be pushed and where could your child maybe get a little extra support. So that's an opportunity to take advantage of also. SEL, social emotional learning, was a question. We will be dedicating our Friday morning. We have a block in the morning that is dedicated to social emotional learning. The school does have a curriculum, and then we also add to, if we see a need in our classroom, we seek out, you know, materials to address needs that we see in our class. Chromebooks are to be coming back and forth every day. There's been a lot of questions and a little confusion of if that's supposed to be. So the school would like the Chromebooks to go back and forth every day. In the event, and hopefully we don't want it to happen. I mean, I took back my office. It's no longer my classroom, but in the event that we get put on remote, we are using them in the school still, but we also need them to go home just in case we have to, Monday join virtually. And there will be times when your child will be given maybe like an IXL for homework, where we think, okay, this activity goes right along with what we're working on. So, this is the activity we would like you to do. So there will be occasions where you will also have homework that would require your Chromebook. Also very important though that they come charged. I know in my room, I have like 2 walls that have outlets and they're basically like covered with bookcases. So it's very hard to get to the outlets. So finding an outlet to be able to charge a child's Chromebook when we're ready to get into the Chromebook and start doing something, it would be super helpful that we've been telling them like, it's your responsibility, make sure that your Chromebook is charged when you come to school. So those do need to come back and forth every day. There was a question, if COVID numbers went up, how fast would we put on remote? If the COVID numbers citywide go up, I mean, even 2 years ago when we got shut down, that wasn't like a Saguenay decision. That was a city statewide decision. So we learned at the same time you all learned also. So we don't have a great answer for you other than you will be notified and we will be notified probably at the same time. I'm going to let one of the other teachers, I think I addressed most of or all of my real questions that came back. And I'm going to let one of the other teachers jump in with their pre-questions that they got.
Great. I'll jump in. So a question that I got was, what can we do to support what teachers do in the classroom? So really, I think the big things that parents can do to really just support us would be make sure you're checking the homework schedule that's posted in the Google Classroom daily, and make sure your students are writing their homework in their notebooks. So if you're noticing that your child is bringing home an empty assignment notebook, check in with them, make sure that they're on top of their learning and being accountable and writing down their homework each day. Make sure to check home folders, ask students about what they're learning, show interest, check in with them about what they're learning. I'm sure they'll have much to say. So we're at that age where students love to talk about what they're doing and learning. So definitely encourage that. Make sure that all action items are done in a timely manner. So if we ever send something home for parents, forms or anything, surveys or whatever, links, please get them done in a timely manner. It just makes everything easier. And please reach out to your homeroom teacher if you have any questions or concerns. And make sure your student has all of the supplies they need for school. So definitely this weekend, check in with students. And I see in the chat box, someone says they can't hear me. Thumbs up if you can hear me really quick. Okay, so if you can't hear me, please refresh your page. And if that doesn't work, close the tab and rejoin the group. Okay, so yep, just reach out to us if you have any questions. Make sure your students are bringing all of their supplies to school that they need. So if your student is missing any notebooks or folders, those need to be here by Monday. They need to, especially I know with Miss Marine Social Studies, we are relying heavily on our notebooks this year. So we need that. And I know I have a few 201 friends who were missing some of that supply. So I did talk to kids one-on-one. So if your student is telling you you're missing something, it's important that you bring it. Okay, and then also masks. Let's make sure students are following those mask mandates. Very important. Your child should be coming to school with a mask on, like no exception. That's just a CPS requirement. And also send your student to school with 2 extra face masks. I know after lunch and recess, my students, their masks are soggy and just doesn't look comfortable. I switch my mask out 3 times a day and I do a lot of talking and I know they do a lot of talking. So please send them home to school with extra masks. And also make sure to just self-screen students each morning. I know we don't have to send in that CPS survey check-in virtually anymore, but it's still important to check in with your students about any symptoms, stomach aches, sneezing, coughing, any of that in the morning, because if they do come to school with those symptoms, and we have to send them to the office if they're not feeling well, and they get sent home, and then all of our students have to evacuate the classroom, and it can just really disrupt learning. So it's good to check in with your student each morning, because I have had some students tell me that they've been feeling sick since they got to school. So check in with students, it's super important. And then just make sure that we are not commingling with different pods after school during dismissal. So if you are a second grade parent, please be mindful of that and not having your student and yourself commingle with students in other grades. And then just please make sure to continue to have good health habits and hygiene and communication. Brush up with your students about the importance of hygiene and everything. And then also I had a parent ask about field trips and concerts. Unfortunately, because of the COVID regulations, field trips and concerts aren't allowed at this time. CPS isn't allowing for parent volunteers in the classroom, but they are allowing for virtual volunteers. So that is something that we just need to discuss as a team in the school further. And if we ever do have possible volunteer opportunities for virtual read-alouds or virtual speakers, we will definitely let you know. I know last year at the school I taught at, we had a parent that was a pilot, and which was very awesome. So we cleared him as a volunteer, and he taught a whole lesson about being a pilot and flying airplanes. So if you have a special talent that you would like to bring and share with our class that might be relevant to our curriculum, please reach out and let us know. So that would be a wonderful volunteer opportunity. And those were the big questions that I really got from my class.
So some of the ones that I had submitted were overlapping with both Miss Murray and Miss Foster, but there were a couple extras. So I had a few parents that were hoping or curious about how they can encourage their child or build their child's comfortability with making mistakes and not being so hard on themselves. And also for the students themselves to take on the responsibility to sort of challenge themselves and not just do the bare minimum. So those types of things are things that we work on all year long. In terms of the comfortability with making mistakes, it's definitely something we cover during SEL time. We do find that at this age level, students start to get really hard on themselves if, they get a question wrong on an assignment, or, they raise their hand to share an answer and maybe it's not exactly, the answer that I was looking for. Those kinds of things, they can get really down on themselves. So I know that as the teacher, I try really hard. I never say like, no, that's wrong or anything like that. We don't want to really point at mistakes necessarily, but we also, I say all the time, and I sometimes will even purposefully make mistakes so that they can see that like nobody is perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. I know on my true false quiz at the beginning of the year, it said, I make mistakes, and all the kids almost laughed like, yes, it's true. Of course it's true. Because of course everyone makes mistakes and nobody is perfect. And so when we do make mistakes, they're a great opportunity to learn from. Another parent had asked about if my child needs harder enrichment work, could that potentially be sent home? That's definitely something that can be discussed, but obviously that's not something that would necessarily be needed for all students. If you really truly find that maybe, a month into homework or something like that, it just really is too easy for your child and you would really like them to have more challenging work at home, I think that's a discussion that you should have with your homeroom teacher and something that could be worked out to help provide some more enrichment work at home for your student. And then the last one I had was about assessing progress. So as Ms. Murray mentioned, we used to do a test 3 times a year called NWEA that assessed both math and reading. We are not doing that test this year, but there is an assessment replacement. However, we have not been told much about it yet. I believe we have a meeting next week with administration that's going to introduce us to this assessment so we can learn more about how to give it and what information and data we can glean from the assessment. But within the classroom itself, we assessed on almost every single standard, whether it's math or reading, whether it's a paper pencil assessment, an exit slip, a one-on-one discussion, or an observation with a student. So we formally and informally assess all the time in the classroom. And we also have CPS mandated assessments like performance tasks and things like that, which we will give. So assessing happens very naturally, but it happens all the time in the classroom. And when it comes to, for example, like a big test, so to speak, so let's say we finish a big topic in math on geometry and we're going to do a big assessment, we will always let you know ahead of time. Often in the past, we've sent things home like study guides and things like that, so you can work with your child at home just to make sure that they're, getting all the skills that they need in order to take their assessment. So we like to keep you in the loop about those things as well. I think that's pretty much a lot of my other questions were addressed, like how to volunteer. Again, right now, we cannot have outside volunteers in the classrooms with COVID restrictions. We are in the process of trying to figure out the virtual part of it all. So I know I had a couple parents in my room asking, oh, can I be your room mom? Although the sentiment is excellent and I, am happy to have parents help out at the current juncture. Unfortunately, there's just not much to help out with, but hopefully that will change over time. And if it doesn't, we'll try to find ways to get room parents involved virtually if we can. So at this time, we're going to open up the floor to any questions that you feel like were not addressed during this sort of pre-submitted question time. You can feel free to drop them in the chat and someone will get back to you. Or if you feel comfortable, either the raise hand button or just unmuting and sharing your question, someone will answer. Thanks so much. So I'm going to address some of the questions in the chat, but if you'd like to stick around and see the answers to those, feel free to stay. If no one has any verbal questions, you can go ahead and hang up. You might have another child's open house to check out, but I'm going to go ahead and address some of these in the chat. And again, if you're kind of ruminating on some questions and you want to share, please go ahead and unmute.
I'll just quickly answer that one about the Google Classroom. Your child's email accesses it. So when your child goes in and logs in through their CPS credentials, their CPS email and password, they've been shown there's like a little, we call it the waffle, the little squares of dots, and then that will allow them to get into Google Classroom. There is, I think, as a parent, there is a way, I think if this is one of my parents, I think I can send you something that would be like to invite you. And then I think it might then send you updates on what goes in, or else the easy way is, like I said, just have your child log in and you can see everything on their Google Classrooms.
And it looks like we have one raised hand. Jordan, what was your question?
No question. I'm all good. Thank you.
Okay.
So I just wanted to mention one that I did answer in the chat about the Friday assessment part that Mrs. Locks asked about. So if it's a spelling week, their spelling test or assessment will be on Friday. So that's why we encourage practicing those words throughout the week. And if it's a wordly wise week, their knowledge of the meaning of the words will be assessed on Friday. if that makes sense. So those assessments are consistent in every week as long as we are having spelling and or wordly wise that week. On certain weeks when maybe, you know, we have a Monday off or something like that, sometimes we'll put a hold on those just because we feel like they lose a day to get to know those words really well. But if your child comes home with spelling words or a wordly wise book, you can guarantee they'll have the assessment on Friday on those words.
Miss Lugo, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I just kind of want to clarify, when my daughter was in second grade, they broke out into groups based on their reading and math level. So I'm wondering, how are we doing that for this current grade level? I understand that we can't mix pods, but how are we going to ensure that all of our kids are doing work, you know, at their own level, you know, instead of a kid that's, you know, maybe not as good in math, better at reading? Like, how are you guys dealing with that?
Right. So Miss Trap had typed in, so we are not allowed because of the COVID restrictions to mix rooms anymore like we used to be able to. And so it's really going to be within the homeroom and getting into those small groups and being able to, you know, if your child needs a little extra support and a skill in reading, and maybe they need a little push in math, you know, whatever it is, that's where our small groups. And right now it's only the second week. Like we're still getting to know.
Right.
The first week was all like get to know you, learn some of the routine and the procedures. We're still very much, because we have to remember that the children haven't really truly been in school.
Sure.
Like in the classroom. So we're finding that there's still a huge need for a lot of, you know, things that we take advantage, or, you know, not take advantage, but, you know, like I walked around one day and not a single student had written their name on the paper. And it was like, oh, you never had to write your name on a paper last year because everything was digital. So there's still like a huge, you know, like gap in that regard that we're really trying to focus on. But once we do get going and we do get, you know, a deeper knowledge of your child, those needs will be met within the homeroom with the homeroom teacher in small groups.
Okay, and with 28 kids, do you guys have the resources or a dedicated person to break them off and help them, or are you just giving them different work and just letting them work in their own group? And I'm sorry, guys, I know this is a lot.
So we have Mr. Antonio who has a schedule, but it's shared with first grade, and then the three of us. So it's like 3 first grades, 3 of us, plus other duties that the school has him doing. He is dedicated to each of us. I believe it, girls, is it 1 day a week? I don't remember, to be honest with you, Miss Lugo. But it is largely us on our own. But you know us, we're resourceful. And so we will be doing everything we can. We'll be sharing with each other any resources that we have to make it the best and most positive for your child.
Okay, so is there any idea of maybe, let's say each of you guys have a group of just kids that are just excelling at math. Will you rearrange the classrooms, or it is what it is at this point?
They're
You guys are
not
just
going to
gonna make the rest of it?
rearrange. No, because of the COVID restrictions and safety protocols, they won't rearrange classes. Because then
Okay.
you'd have intermingling and all sorts of other things happening. Yeah. So the homerooms are as they are.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So you might notice Miss Trapp is in charge of the chat. And Miss Foster and I are trying to answer any questions that come up, you know, verbally. So feel free if you have any, or drop them in the chat like we said. And if you feel like you're good, feel free to hang up, and feel free to email us if you need to also.
I was just going to say we'll probably wait about 5 more minutes, but if the questions seem to be at a stopping point, we're going to go ahead and end the meeting at 5:50, unless everyone happens to hang up before that time. So thanks so much for coming, and we'll hope to be in communication with you soon about everything. Thank you.
And Miss Lugo, did you have another question, or is your hand just still raised?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, I guess that's a wrap.
All right. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.